Contrary to what the internet says, the head gaskets in this car are still 19 years old and still in one piece. There must be some sort of magic going on in this car, because if you look at the internet, you cannot even drive these out of the driveway without blowing up an engine. So I've now had this Subaru for 5 years, and today I'm going to tell you what I like about it and a few things I don't like about it. Look at that, LS. That's killer. So I bought this car 5 years ago. I was looking for something that was all-wheel drive. Preferably I wanted an all-wheel drive because I preferred something manual as well. And I wanted a wagon. So to be honest, about the only options out there was a Subaru that had a performance engine. I didn't want to buy something that was complete vanilla. So I bought this car. I'm by no means a Subaru person. If anything, I prefer Mitsubishi Evos.
Say that again.
I prefer Mitsubishi Evos, to be honest, overall, but hey, you can't get them in a wagon, and before you say you can, no you can't, not for big dollars, not for what I paid for this car. Because if you look at the internet, you cannot even drive these out of the driveway without blowing up an engine.
Well, ring lands are bad, head gaskets.
It's really interesting because the Subarus that I guess you could say that were a bit unreliable were like the early WRX, like the GC8s, which the US didn't even have in their market.
No, the US didn't get them till like 2000
but
or 2001. They didn't get any of the early stuff.
But the so-called cars that have these ringland issues are generally, from what I gather, the 2.5 litre engines. This is the EJ20, but this is a EJ2205. So this is a fully open, open deck block. So it's not like the STI engine, but a lot of Subarus, you look on, when you're looking for sale, have a lot of kilometres. This car has it's got about 125,000 kilometres on it, which isn't that much for a car of this era. I don't drive it every day. Some weeks I might drive it 3 days a week. Other weeks I may not drive it. I might drive it 1 day a week. I admit, if the weather is terrible, I don't tend to take it out as much because the car's black and I don't have time to clean it. I can't really fault this car in terms of it's never broken down on me. All I've done is just regular servicing stuff, which you do in any car, but nothing untoward in terms of like excessive, expensive bills like you might get on a European car. It's just been normal run-of-the-mill service stuff that it's not bad at all. I mean, I can't really say a bad word about my experience owning the car. However, I'd noticed lately that it wasn't running that well in terms of like, it wasn't starting that well when it was cold, and it just felt really flat. Like off boost, it just felt flat. You'd almost hear the turbo spool and nothing would happen. And then it would give you it all at once, which kind of in a way made the car felt quicker than it probably is because it was so lazy and laggy. So I actually booked it in at Harrop recently and they went over the car. This was about a month ago, and oh my God, it is like night and day. And all I've done is just given the car a bit of a health checkup. So Joel, I'm just here with you at Harrop Engineering, and you're just giving the old Subaru a bit of a, what do you call it, a health check?
Health check, bit of a touch-up, yeah.
It's been about 5 years since this car's been on the dyno, and it wasn't starting overly great when it was cold and used to hunt, and it was getting a bit worse on petrol, I should say. Not that that's a big deal, but I found it was a bit sluggish off boost, and you found a few little issues.
Yeah. No one ever complains if you give them better economy. One thing that I always do with these is clean the MAF, particularly being that that's a oil type air filter. It's pretty common, as you've just replaced the air filter, to get oils that sort of comes through the filter and deposits on the MAF. that can really affect the way these cars run. So we always clean up the MAF first, and then sort of establish a bit of a baseline normally, then sort of look over the fuel trims and put the knockies on it, have a listen for knock and timing. In this case, we were lucky, we were able to sort of put a bit more part throttle and cruise timing in it, which should help with your economy. Took a little bit of fuel out of the sort of wide open throttle mixtures. It was probably a bit richer than it needed to be. It was a very safe, conservative tune in it. Not that we're trying to break it, but
no,
we're still running plenty rich enough that at the level of boost and power we're at, we'll be fine.
Yeah, and look, it ended up back where I thought it would be, around the 200 kilowatt range, which is pretty sort of...
It's good.
Good for, well, it's pretty normal for a car with this sort of modification, so...
It drives nicely.
It's all running good.
The main thing is just to get it sort of so you enjoy driving, I suppose. It's making horsepower is never the hardest part of the job, I don't think. It's more about sort of making sure that the car's a pleasant experience every day.
Yeah, and most of the time you're driving it, you're not on boost.
No.
Yeah, so, and that's the part that was starting to aggravate me, so yeah, time to take it for a spin, and yeah.
It should be good.
All right.
I'm confident.
Thanks, mate.
No worries.
So it does go a bit better now, Luke.
Oh, it doesn't necessarily make any more power in the top end, it just drives so much better. I actually can't believe how much better this car drives. I was at the point where I was just a bit over this car. I don't know what to do with it. You know, you get sick of it. All of a sudden, all I've had is just, just retuned, fixed a few issues with it, and my God, it's like night and day how much better it drives.
Tell you what it is though, it's friggin' rough. I mean, how stiff is the suspension? Remind me what's done to this car?
Suspension-wise?
Yeah, it's just very hard.
It's got sway bars, it's got...
It does have coilovers, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
So
but
they're not adjustable?
Ones. They're nothing flat.
So it's not like they wound up tight, they're just fixed?
No, they're just height adjustable. I don't think these have
okay.
So I don't think these have stiffness adjustment. They're just like a basic teen coilover, I
It's
think.
like the rebound isn't right with them or something.
Day-to-day fuel economy is noticeably better. Yeah, really noticeably better. Even like just driving it into the garage, you know, it was always really fumey, this car.
Your car, tell you what, it feels the turn-in, it feels so much...
Oh, did you see then? I just gave it a little bit of throttle and you could just feel the rear wanting to slide out. It's so predictable though.
The turn-in feels so much more direct than my car.
Yeah, so one thing, Joel from Harrop, when we had it on the dyno, we were mucking around. This has a aftermarket diff controller. It doesn't have the standard Subaru setup on it. At the moment, it's set to around 70% rear-wheel drive. One thing I don't like about this, obviously this has a 6-speed gearbox, like the STI 6-speed. It's the short ratio version. So this thing revs. There's so many times, like now I'm on the freeway, I've got it in 6th gear. I actually put the clutch in to put it in 6th gear, and then you realise, hang on, it's in 6th gear. I do that all the time because I'm jumping out of other cars that obviously don't rev so high. It doesn't rev that high. It revs at around 3,000 in top at 100. But that's a big difference if you jumping out of other cars that might only be, spinning at 2,200 RPM. You're pretty much pulling 4th gear by about 120, flat out. The gearing, the car's actually much more effort to drive quick, if that makes sense. Like if you're in traffic, because of the gearing, you're constantly changing gears. One thing that was interesting at the dyno, now this went on a hub dyno. I've never had this car on a all-wheel drive hub dyno. This made outright less power than what it's made on a chassis dyno.
So for all the people who think hub dynos are just mega inflated.
No, I definitely think a hub dyno reads higher, but I don't think it's set in stone and on what car. Because that's when you look at it and go, well, you can't really compare dyno figure, different dynos on different days and all that. Do you know what I mean? The car does not feel like it has less power.
Different brand of dyno, types of dyno.
Different brand. The car certainly does not feel like it has less power than it did before. But I mean, the dyno is just a tuning tool. I wasn't even worried about it. I did not take the car there to get a dyno reading. I wanted the car to be more drivable down low and to come on boost better and do all that, and it's doing it way better. So, future plans for this car, if I really want to make any more power, the engine's got to come out.
And that's when the 6-cylinder goes in?
I actually like the idea of doing a 6-cylinder Look, I know other people have done it before. I wouldn't do it for that reason. And other people have done it. That doesn't mean you should never do it. The reason I'm doing it is because, yeah, why not? You want something with a bigger engine, but this has a good drive line in it already.
And this driveline would handle a 6-cylinder, no problem.
It probably would. I'm not going to drive it like an idiot. So it's got all that. It just needs a decent engine. The other option is you build a 2-litre on the side and then drop it in. I would not pull this engine out and build it because I know what things are like. I don't want the car off the road for, 6 months. So, I don't know. There's really not much more I can do to this car, to be honest, without spending, serious dollars. One thing I might look at doing is doing E85. Jordan, I believe you've already got me a flex fuel sensor.
Yeah, it hasn't been used on my car, so you're free to use
so
it.
The next stage on this car is probably a flex fuel sensor and some E85, and then actually we might be forced to pull the engine out because the rods could be on the floor. But yeah, I mean, it could do a head gasket.
It could do some ring lands.
It could do some ring lands, a head gasket, but it hasn't yet. So car's nearly 20 years old and yeah, it's had a pretty good run. So overall, I'm pretty happy with it. Look at that, LS. That's killer. LSA R8. I wouldn't mind one of them. You know what I'd buy though? I'd buy the Tourer, the wagon.
You need the LS and the WRX.
Yeah, I know. One issue with this car, if I sold it, I'd seriously get $3.50 for it. These things,
because no one wants a wagon.
No, you cannot sell a wagon. And to be honest, I only wanted a wagon. I've owned a couple of wagons. Like, I don't like the sedan. The boot space is useless, but who wants the washing, the wing on the back that you can put your washing on? Screw that. No, one thing really petty, I hate black cars. I bought a black car. But yeah, I wish it wasn't black. I've always liked the WRC blue, obviously, and if this was repainted how it is in the WRC blue, it would look really good on this car, that colour.